regularly scheduled meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission to order. Roll call, Amanda, if you would read the roll call, please.
Absolutely. Commissioner Rodoni? Chair Blanchfield?
Here.
Vice Chair Condon? And let the record reflect that Commissioner Condon is not present. Commissioner Conley? And let the record reflect that Commissioner Conley is not present. Commissioner Murray?
Here.
Commissioner McEntee?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Arnold? And let the record reflect that Commissioner Arnold is not present. Commissioner Brown? Commissioner Skelton?
Present.
And Commissioner Caius.
Here.
Okay, here comes Commissioner Conley right down the hall.
Just in time for the roll call. All right.
So Commissioner Connolly is now present, and let the record reflect that roll has been taken.
Okay, we have sufficient number of commissioners here to form a quorum. We can conduct business. Going to move to the agenda. Oh, okay. Is this better? Yes. I guess, okay. I just let you all know that my throat has decided to go out on me here, so I may be speaking a little more slowly this evening. Agenda review. Any member of the commission wish to discuss? Yes.
Item 4, if we could pull that one.
Pull item 4, okay.
Well, that's what, just whether or not you want to change the order.
Yes, that's right. When we get to the consent, then
Okay.
you can pull that out and we'll take care of that. So the order's okay with you all? All right. We'll move on then to open time, the opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on matters that we are not going to address tonight, and it's also under our authority. Seeing no member of the public that wishes to speak on this, I'll move to the consent calendar items, and if there are any commissioners that would like to pull an item out for us to discuss and then pull back in, now's the time to do it. Commissioner
Yeah,
Murray?
item 4, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
And I'd like to pull item 9, please.
okay. Any others? No, okay, we'll pull those off and take them in order and see if we can address those matters. Great, item number 4 under the consent calendar.
Okay, just basically, can we receive kind of a summary of when the public could review and have opportunity to comment? It's good? Oh, Jeff's mic's off.
Yeah, okay.
So you have to, I think you do it every time.
Yeah.
So the agency profile is part of the phase of these, San Rafael Lucas Valley Municipal Service Review will be presented at our next meeting, and at that meeting, there will be a public review for approximately 45 days. And then following that meeting, there will be the draft municipal service review with an additional 45 public day review period.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this one? Okay, I'll move to item number 9. Whoops, I'll turn this on. Item number 9, Sashi?
Yes, so I know that we are not doing committee appointments because we were going to do them at the retreat, and we've moved the retreat, but I thought we might want to consider just reaffirming the appointments that we already have until then, just so that we have that. Otherwise, we're just kind of letting them linger past their original appointment time. So just wanted to put that out for the commission to consider.
That would be fine. We normally, the reason it was earlier, it was because the retreat normally was in February. And oftentimes at the retreat, some ideas on new committees come up, so it's just, but I think there will be the understanding that will continue, it's like a continuing resolution. Will continue until the commission takes this up at their strategic planning retreat. Is that a fair understanding then?
Sure, so I guess if there's no objection to that,
Yeah.
then that's effectively the same thing.
Okay. So, since we've addressed these matters, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Motion to present.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the consent calendar items. Okay, I'll move on to our one public hearing.
We have to vote.
We do. You are right, we do. All those in favor of accepting the consent calendar indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? We will have adopted that and move on to the next item. Thank you, Commissioner Conley. The next item, as I said, is our one public hearing. It deals with special district appointments to the Consolidated Redevelopment Agency Oversight Board, and I'll let Rachel explain this one.
Thank you, Chair. So staff has proposed policy amendments to the Commission's existing guidelines regarding special district appointments. And I'll give a brief overview and background on why LAFCO is tasked and why we're presenting these policies. In June 2011, the governor signed the Bill X-26 to dissolve redevelopment agencies, in which the oversight of redevelopment agencies were transferred to successor boards with the legislative task of kind of winding down their pre-existing projects. Property tax revenues generated within these redevelopment agencies were, redirected to a single county-wide fund known as the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund. There are 3 successor boards in the county, and these are, which include the County of Marin, the City of San Rafael, and the City of Novato. And within these 3 successor agencies, there are 7 special districts that are part of the property tax roll and are eligible to receive residual payments from this redevelopment property tax trust fund. LAFCOs are now tasked by Senate Bill 107 to appoint a special district member to this county-wide consolidated, oversight board. And they're based from these 3 successor boards. So staff has drafted and presented policy amendments similar to the commission's appointment process for special district members on this commission, with just a few minor adjustments to take into account. First being is specifying the eligibility requirements to only those special districts that will receive these residual payments from this property tax trust fund. The next is to make explicit that the special district representative be an appointed or elected elected board member of these said districts as a means to refine the nominee pool, and they would have knowledge of the finances of the district as well as they're held accountable to the public. Staff also recommends to appoint an alternate to ensure local representation or if the appointee is unavailable or must resign. And lastly, staff proposes the commission to follow the existing LAFCO policies in holding mail elections for appointments with few minor adjustments, and that would be allowing the executive officer to provide ballot materials through email and the nominee receiving the most votes so long as a voting quorum is reached will be appointed as the special district representative to this oversight board. And before I state my recommendation to the commission, I would also like to note a few minor revisions to the proposed policy amendments to be considered. And these are on page 4 of the handbook, which is page 58 of the agenda packet, to specify in section 5 titled Other Appointments that the 3 successor agencies are the County of Marin, City of Novato, and City of San Rafael. And then continuing on page 5 of the handbook, which is page 59 of the agenda packet, the last paragraph, to state the number needed for a quorum, which would be 4. Finally, on page 6 of the handbook, page 60 of the agenda packet, to the last paragraph, I would include the word special district before the word, or the word special district before the word presiding. And it is with these proposed policies and the aforementioned modifications that staff recommends the commission proceed with alternative action 1. And with that, I'll return the item to the chair and be happy to address any commissioners with questions or hear any comments.
Yeah, before I open the public hearing, are there any commissioner questions of Rachel on her presentation? Greg?
Rachel, so none of the 3 entities that were former redevelopment agencies here in Marin County actually formed their own successor agencies, is that correct?
So from my knowledge, the agencies, I guess it was the City of San Rafael had a redevelopment agency, City of Novato, and the County of Marin. So they will all be consolidated into one agency. So they were, how would I say, they were automatically the successor agency for those previous boards.
Okay, I understood from state laws that if none of those entities form their own board, then in effect the state would form, and it sounds like that's where things are now. And then I guess my second question, if you know, is who is responsible for this successor agency of these 3, or is it jointly shared amongst the 3 former redevelopment agencies?
So I believe it would be jointly shared amongst the 3 agencies. I would have to give you that information and supply that to you offline.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a comment. Your question is intriguing because there's always been a little competition, more than a little sometimes, between the county, San Rafael, Novato. In this case, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still deciding who's in charge and, how this is going to go. So maybe you could get back to us when you find out, where this is happening.
So from my knowledge, at least, there should be representation. So LAFCO is only handling the special district process of that. But I do know the board will be made up of at least 7 members, and it would be similar to the commission with 2 representatives from the city and the county, and I would believe a public member as well, and then special district. So I don't know how their process would be for electing those city and county members, but I will definitely get back to you with more
I
information.
mean, we don't have any control over it, but just for curiosity, to kind of know how it's set. Thank you.
Okay, I'm opening the public hearing, and members of the public can address the commission on this matter. And not seeing any member of the public addressing the commission on this matter, if we're finished answering questions, if not, we'll keep it open.
Oh, I have, when we move to deliberations, I have some non-substantive clarification edit
Okay.
suggestions.
We'll come back, and I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close.
Motion is second to close the public hearing on the policy amendments to the handbook. All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? The public hearing is closed. Sasha, you had some questions or comments?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of suggested edits, none of which are substantive, but just are for clarity. But one overriding thought is that this is under section 3.1 of our policy handbook, which is selection of commissioners, and it seems like it should be separated into a different section because it doesn't, the rest of the section has selection of commissioners and alternates and how that process goes. And this is for a separate entity, so it seems like it should be in a separate section. I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
Staff has no issues with moving it to a different section. I would be happy to work, with the policy committee and finding the correct place for that.
And in looking at it, I mean, there's not really any great place for, I mean, I think it can be in chapter 3, but just not in 3.1. Maybe it's in, it's in, 3.2 and you bump everything else down, or you put it at the end of chapter 3. I don't have a strong feeling about it. I just didn't think it should be in section 3.1, selection of commissioners.
Okay, maybe the two of you could get together and come up with what you feel is a reasonable place for this. We understand the language is okay as amended. The location is the
Yeah.
key thing. And I'm sure you can come up with one and report back to us what you would recommend.
Sure. And then a couple other things. And I since I marked up my copy and I sent it to you so that you don't have to write all this down. So on starting page 5, the section board members only, I thought that should be consolidated into nominee criteria because that is one of the nominee criteria. The procedures for appointments before the July 1, 2018 deadline. Sometimes you say Marin LAFCO executive officer, sometimes you just say executive officer, so just make that consistent. And I think you already noted the presiding officer of the special district and just kind of making that consistent. And then the first paragraph under procedures there, the executive officer shall initiate the inaugural election, and then later you say from the date of the call for nominations. So I'm wondering if instead of initiate, you could say shall call for nominations for, and then you could say subject to the following modifications. And then but that's all pursuant to what you said earlier, pursuant to section 34179 of the Health and Safety Codex. So just referencing that same part above. And then designated alternate, the special district presiding officer or designated alternate. I think using the word alternate there is confusing because you just use it to be the alternate appointment. So maybe it could be the presiding officer or their designee might be clear. So that's it, just clarifying points.
And you say you've given your, you've given your markups
Yes.
to
And-
Rachel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Well, those seem, on the face of it, reasonable to me. And so you need this passed this evening, as I understand it.
Yes, we are a little bit behind in calling for nominations, and I believe we will call for them March 1st. So
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion then to approve the policy amendments with the guidance that Commissioner McEntee has given us this evening and given to you.
and staff is fine with all the modifications.
Oh, okay.
So moved.
Motion and second to approve the handbook policy amendments as modified. All commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? Motion passes. Now, we'll move on to our business items, and the first item, number 11, deals with a new payroll accounting system as we move away from having the county do it to essentially being on our own, but with guidance from the county that has expertise in this manner.
Absolutely. So it has been the longstanding practice for Marin LAFCO to use the County of Marin for payroll services. And as of December 2014, the county implemented a new financial management system, our software system known as Munis, and that went into effect as of July 1st, 2016. This allowed for the commission to transfer to QuickBooks and contract with our bookkeeper, Alyssa Schiffman. The county is now currently undergoing its second phase of this transition process, and as a result, similar to the new financial accounting system, it has determined that it's not cost-effective to support Marin LAFCO and manage payroll services and reporting functions for outside users. Now, the county has implemented a recommended transition plan, which involves contracting with a company known as ADP and to provide related payroll services. Additionally, the county will oversee the transfer of LAFCO's payroll information to the platform ahead of its projected March 11th deadline. The county has also offered to cover the first year cost of service. We have to confirm that, but that was suggested, and the annual estimated cost of service thereafter is approximately $1,800. Overall, staff feels comfortable with this, given that the county suggested a company, they have a plan. This is something that was on our work plan already, so we kind of knew about this with the transfer of QuickBooks. So it's not too shocking, and there's a plan in place. So staff will be working with the county to understand this new software system, ADP, and as well as formulate internal controls and policies with now handling its own payroll. So this item is for the commission to approve a new management system marked by the transitioning away from the county to a standalone process directly managed by Marin LAFCO through ADP. And then it is as well to authorize the executive officer, when we do receive a contract, to enter into an agreement with ADP to provide related management services through the end of March of next year, with an estimated cost of around $1,400 for that first year. And this is outlined in Alternative Action 1. I'll return the item to the chair and for commission discussion and to receive comments or questions.
Rachel, so I understand there's a certain amount of liability doing payroll, so that's shifting from the county now to a LAFCO group. ADP, I know others use ADP. Has anyone reviewed that transfer liability, and are we basically covered under that condition?
I would have to look into this, but it seems that the county is kind of holding our hand through this whole process. So I would say that that liability most likely would fall, we're covered. But I have to have more talks with the county to make sure that all of our documents are processed, and they will still be handling kind of the back end, but it will just be us entering the time, dates, and all of that.
So just to clarify, the county is paying that first year, so the $1,300, so we're not paying anything the first year, and we don't need to include that in the budget for this year?
This,
Yeah.
I want to get it in writing
Yeah.
before we go with that, but this has been,
Yeah,
verbalized to me, and I'm saying it here, so hopefully.
okay.
That
So
will-
you'll have that clarified in writing, and then
Yes.
you'll also have the terms of the contract, because you don't have that yet, right? You said you assume it's going to be an annual renewing, but you don't have the terms yet.
Exactly.
And when will you find that out?
So I'm guessing as soon as next week.
Okay.
Rachel, question on our QuickBooks system. This integrates into this process that we're moving into? I mean, we foresaw this occurring.
Exactly.
And my understanding of one of the reasons we moved to QuickBooks is that it would assist us in doing more work internally rather than farming it out. So was that going to be happening? And if so, what kinds of cost are we looking at, if you know at this point down the road?
Overall, we have a projection of around $5,000 if we were to renew the contract after 4 years. I don't see there being an issue with staff time in kind of taking it on, this responsibility on our own, given that we would still have to supply the county with this information. So in a way, I think it'll be a little bit more streamlined for our staff to handle this.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Sorry, just rereading, alternative action 1 says at a cost of $13.93. So are we approving this, assuming we may be paying the $13.93? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion. We do have a staff recommendation to approve the modified payroll management system.
So moved.
Okay,
Second?
motion second to approve the change in payroll accounting system. Okay, we'll move on to item number 12, which is,
Chair,
yes,
all the other members have to vote too.
yes, they do. All those in favor of the motion to approve the new accounting system signify by saying aye.
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 Any commissioner abstain? Any commissioner object? Now we'll move on to item number 12, which is ratification on the selection of the executive search firm to look for a new executive officer.
So on November 27th, the commission issued requests for proposals for executive search services for the recruitment of the executive officer. The policy committee reviewed all proposals submitted to the commission and interviewed 2 candidates. The committee ultimately selected Peckham and McKinney as the best firm in regards to experience and expertise for the role. The firm has knowledge in providing executive search services for LAFCOs and has a key outline for the search process tailored to Marin LAFCO's needs. The proposal outlines, I believe, an estimated 14-week recruitment process with a total cost of $29,000. And this includes an upfront payment of approximately $9,700, followed by the remainder payments to be made in 2 separate monthly invoices. The policy committee selection and recommendation of Peckham and McKinney for executive search services followed a standard RFP process and the policies that were established and set by the commission. Formal ratification is recommended to support the policy committee selection and also the recommendation for the commission through the chair to enter into a contract agreement with Peckham and McKinney to provide executive search services for this recruitment process. And if any of the commissioners would like to see, please note the final results of that evaluation criteria may be reviewed in this folder I have here that I'll bring out. But with that, I'll return the item to the chair and suggest members of the policy committee answer any questions about the selection process.
Okay, I just, for the policy committee, which was myself and Commissioner Baker and Commissioner Conley and Commissioner McEntee, who sat in Commissioner Conley's absence, we reviewed their proposals and had an interview with each firm, and we felt that both firms had a very responsive proposal and orally were very responsive to what the commission's needs were. And from that, we had a unanimous recommendation to pick Peckham and McKinney. We felt that they would do an excellent job. We also noted that they had done an excellent job of rating us because they were the firm that recruited our former executive officer. So I would be glad, and I'm sure other members of the committee may wish to make comments on this, but it's important that we move ahead on this so that we can get a new executive officer in place in a reasonable period of time. Any members of the committee wish to make any comments?
The process, and I think it was one of those, at least in my experience, it went quickly, and they were both very competent firms. And we did, as you said, recommend unanimously that firm. By the way, I don't see, unless I miss it here, even the name of the other party, the other firm. Maybe it ought to be, if I'm missing it, you may show me at some point, but it ought to be at least acknowledged
Yes,
who they
and,
are, and they were an excellent firm.
and it was Bobby and Associates,
Bob Murray?
Bob Murray, excuse me, and Associates. And excuse me for leaving that out of the staff report.
Actually, you're right, I didn't think about that. We probably should have included the other proposal just for completeness. I'm not sure what the usual procedure is, but you're right.
Or at least finish that.
And, okay, and I can change that in the agenda report following.
Okay. Yes, Sashi.
And I think, Jack, you had a good suggestion in our meeting that we would want to stipulate that Clay Phillips, who was the person we talked to, be our contact at Peckham and McKinney. We all had a really good feeling about Clay particularly, and he has some good experience, and his style and his tone and everything we really liked. So we didn't want it to be that we signed on with them and then they gave us somebody else. So we wanted to stipulate as part of that. But I think that this action is indicating that that the policy committee would then enter into a contract with Peckham. Is that?
So the commission, through the chair, would enter into a contract with Peckham and McKinney.
Okay, through the chair, okay.
We want to make sure that clear that that particular individual would be the one to work with us.
If I may, the firm has indicated that they would do that in writing, so that, but it's important to put that into the agreement, that it be so. And the committee, as we have done in the past, or it has done in the past on this one, will be reporting back to the commission what the status is. And then I'm sure that the consultant will be contacting each commission member to get the feel of the individuals as well as the institution in the search. So you can count on that. And we would then be guiding this, the committee would be guiding this process and bringing to the commission the screened potential applicants for review and interview by the committee, by the commission, rather.
And would the policy committee be the point of contact, or who is going to be the point of contact with the executive search firm?
It would be the policy committee, and likely myself conferring with the committee.
I think just wanted to say that I think it's important that we are very responsive to the firm, whoever is the point of contact, whether it's you, Chair Blanchfield, or a member of the policy committee, so that since we're at this point, we want to move this along. So let's not have us be the delay.
I agree with that. So I'm going to take it to the essence of the commission rather, that we would proceed in this manner, and that we would pick Peckham and McKinney. I don't think we need a motion. Maybe it's better to have a motion, though.
I think we need one.
Motion and second to approve Peckham McKinney to be the recruitment firm for the executive officer position of Marin LAFCO, and for the policy committee to be the key contact group with the consultant and with staff, and to report back on a continual basis the status of the process to the commission. Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any commissioner abstaining? Any commissioner objecting? Motion passes. Now, on to the next selection of counsel for the commission. This also was a sort of a no-lose situation for the commission. We had three very excellent firms. We had Best and Krieger, and I can't pronounce their name again. You'll hold with me.
Culitano, Highsmith, and Watley.
Yes, and the County Counsel's Office of Marin County. So the committee reviewed all the proposals, interviewed each one of the proposalees, and selected Best and Krieger for recommending to the commission that they have them as counsel to the commission.
Part of the commission's adopted work plan for this current fiscal year, on November 6th of last year, the commission issued a request for proposal for legal representation to the commission and its staff to serve as commission counsel. Staff was directed to seek and review options for outside counsel appointments and/or reestablish its current arrangement with the county. All proposals were reviewed by the policy committee relative to the criteria outlined in the RFP, and for complete transparency, we received proposals from Best and Krieger, Culitano, Highsmith, and Watley, and the county of Marin. The committee interviewed all three candidates and selected Best and Krieger as the best overall match for general and specialized legal services. And Best and Krieger has offices in Walnut Creek as their closest office located to LAFCO. And they have extensive experience in navigating Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg, as well as land use planning and CEQA. They also have vital experience working in the Cal-LAFCO organization. Their rate would be around $250 per hour for general counsel services and around $285 for special counsel services. Formal ratification is recommended to support the policy committee selection, along with the recommendation to enter into a contract with Best and Krieger for legal representation, and this is outlined in Alternative Action 1. And I'll return that to the chair.
Well, there was some discussion. I had the concern, is one of the participants in this. I think all three, the two private firms and county council were well qualified. I think we agreed. And we did pick what we ultimately agreed after a number of discussions, what was sort of the most suitable and well-qualified firm. My concern was that as we've had sort of minimal legal, need for legal support for the last 2 or 3 years, and the previous council, David Zaltman, assigned by county council, I don't think he even billed anything for the last couple of years. But there seemed to be some, my sense was that staff, as things have evolved, perhaps is expecting to have them review every document, every staff report, every piece of paper, perhaps come to every meeting. And I think after a few discussions, it was my understanding that things would be referred to them as necessary, because a lot of the stuff is boilerplate or it's, it's getting sterile. I don't feel, the things I've dealt with, that most of it doesn't need to. So that we be very selective on what things are sent to them and whether or not they even sit in at meetings. occasionally, if there's some controversy, something that looks litigious, then we would be very careful about rather than having somebody like some agencies, they have their counsel sitting there all night, and the meter's running, and read a whole bunch of stuff, doesn't change anything. So I'm just, maybe I'm being repetitious, but I'm hopeful that it will work out, as I seem to get some assurance, that we will send things to them selectively and invite them to come in selectively.
Review our perspective on this is we would feel comfortable for them to read our staff reports, review our recommendations, look at our resolutions, and this would be the staff reports at our bi-monthly meetings. So to ensure that all of our findings, all of our approvals are in line, not only with our policies, but with Cortese Knox Hertzberg. While they do not have to attend our meetings, staff is fine with that, but I believe a good road to go would have them review our staff
Yeah,
reports.
well, I disagree. If we've got a 100 to 300 page staff report, to have council go through the whole thing, when we've had realistically no council reading them for 2 or 3 years, to now go the other direction and have them read every piece of paper, and it's going to take, hours doing that. And it's going to, our costs are going to skyrocket, and it's not going to change anything.
Is your concern about the cost?
Basically, yeah.
Rachel, if I can, my understanding was that those staff reports that have a significant impact should be the ones to be looked at, not everything you can turn out. So I think maybe you and Commissioner Baker are pretty much on the same page on this one.
I would have to say that initially they should be reading our staff reports so they can get a feel of, who we are, what we do, what type of applications we're getting, so they can forecast future issues, future concerns, and we will be kind of buffered from them. So I would think at least the first 2-3 months that they should be reviewing our staff report meetings.
I would like to suggest that we maybe take that part of the issue and discuss it at length at our retreat. But my personal opinion is I agree with Rachel that I think that we should have council review all of our board materials, and I think they should show up to the meeting. At our city council meetings, there's always, our city attorney is always there. Sitting there, they may say almost nothing during the whole thing, but it's coverage, and LAFCO, when things go sideways, things go really sideways. And I think rather than being penny wise and pound foolish, I'd rather see that. But I think that this is something the commission should this separate from the appointing of this particular council. We should have a policy discussion about what we want to do about that, and we should look at real numbers. What would what does BB&K estimate their number of hours would be for a typical board meeting packet, and we can see what those numbers look like. If they are astronomical and we would have to make some real adjustments, then we can figure that out. I think rather than speculating about whether it would be too much, I would suggest that we take that policy discussion to the retreat.
Well, it also may be good in that retreat to have our council there, so we have a full discussion about what we're expecting, what we're not expecting, have their viewpoint on what's really necessary. One of our discussions with one of the firms, and what you guys really need is kind of a legal autopsy to see how you're set up, what are your findings like, those kinds of things, so that it's helpful. Yeah, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Couple
O'Donnell.
questions. I was wondering how the hourly rates compared and whether they were similar between all the firms.
Oh, and so to that point, then we should, same as the other one, we should put all the proposals. I think everybody should have seen all the proposals.
I believe in the last meeting, the hourly rate was specified, and excuse me for not putting it in this agenda report, but I believe Best and Krieger had, I want to say, the best rate out of all 3 firms.
And I guess
A little
this,
higher, I think.
If I can, to help on this, they were a little bit higher, but they're also close. I mean, it's just chump change that's separating them.
and maybe this is my lack of legal knowledge, but in reading their proposal, almost everything they would do for us is special counsel, because we're not going to do most of the other general counsel stuff. So hopefully you took that into account when you were picking someone, that we're really going to pay the 285 mostly for doing CEQA and land use and the things that we do. I don't think the 250 is reasonable, except for maybe reading the agenda. So I read their proposal, so I just wanted to point that out. And I agree that somewhat with Jack, at least this year, because I don't think the budget is very large. Never has been very large for legal fees. So we would want to make sure we keep in line this budget year with the budget that we have, so.
We have some room right now. I would say at least $25,000. So there's a little bit of a buffer. And I think we'd be safe for, having them review a few of our reports.
I just want to remind us where we are we have some outstanding legal issues that we're involved in. And that's why it's important, I think, to keep an open eye on
Absolutely,
what we're
but,
budgeting for legal services, because it can cost us a lot of money.
and staff would definitely like to maybe propose to give an update at our next meeting in a closed session of what's going on with that. But I think we would have room for this fiscal year.
Okay, but if I can, I think that's a good idea to have the briefing of where we stand on these personnel matters and our legal matters. Excuse me. Sasha.
Dennis, so the other rates were, Colitano's was $275 an hour for litigation and special counsel services, paralegal time between $125 and $160 an hour, and they would charge one half the discounted rate for travel to and from Marin County from the Nevada County office. The County of Marin was $220 an hour.
So kind of echoing the kind of similar concerns is we have a budget for legal. There'd be normal matters that should fall under that budget. And so now it's kind of taking Best Best and Krieger saying, this is what we have. What do you expect to apply that towards? And then we talked about this before, is if we have an applicant that seems to go above and beyond, and perhaps there's a policy we could point to now, but we really should have that in place where these excessive legal costs are, because they really do benefit that applicant, that they're borne by the applicant. They're not borne by the greater body, which is LAFCO. So I just want to make sure we're all kind of in agreement with that.
Well, we do have a fee structure in our regulations we'd have to look at to see if we have that kind of latitude you speak to, but, okay. Any other comments?
I'm
Matt?
just going to ask if if you fill out a building permit application, you agree to indemnify the city. So I was wondering if our LAFCO applications
We do. We
have that, so they can.
So we have them sign an indemnification agreement always.
And I would like to respond to Jack's comment. In the last few years, we've not had to have a whole lot of legal involvement because the executive director had such a vast experience with LAFCO law that we saved on legal fees. And I would like to support Rachel as she's, getting her footing here as the interim executive director, where she's comfortable and confident in the reports that she's able to put out until she can develop the skill and knowledge with the law that her predecessor had. So I'm inclined to suggest that we have documents reviewed along the lines of what Rachel is suggesting.
And this was also, this is what our predecessor, executive officer, really wanted. He did want to change and have our commission council review our documents and read the staff reports. So this was something echoed to me that I believe is a good suggestion as well.
And it doesn't have to be on everything, But, you know, certainly those items that are complicated and that it warrants an additional set of eyes from an attorney, that we should have that available.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one of the reasons we have a staff that can red flag issues that come and say, you know, we should really have this reviewed by council. And I think it makes the staff more comfortable in making their recommendations.
And it may also, if I may, it may also benefit us as commissioners if prior to the meeting, we can say, hey, did legal counsel have eyes on this? And then we can have some sort of response prepared rather than having them drive over here from Nevada County or wherever else.
I had one or two quick questions. Rachel, you said that there's about a $25,000 buffer in the budget. Does that include the $29,000 for the search committee for the EO?
So what I'm speaking of, that buffer is just for our legal services unit. That would not be for the search committee. For the search committee, given our savings with not having an executive officer, we can pull from that salaries unit.
Okay. And then I want to echo, as an attorney, I wanted to echo some of the comments that have been made across the board, namely the importance of having legal review at the early stage, giving you, staff, an opportunity to have legal counsel review a full packet, but to the same point that Jack just raised, sort of weaning off of that. If you look at just tonight's agenda, over half of the volume is actually consumed by consent calendar items, presumably non-litigious or controversial, or however you want to frame it. I think it would be not necessarily appropriate for legal counsel to review all of that. I know how much time I put into reading the material, and I don't think it would necessarily, in the long term, be a good use of resources, and it would unnecessarily consume the budget. I do think that you need to go through a cycle, probably 2 hearings, give or take, for them to do a full review, give feedback, and then hopefully you can take that feedback and carry it forward so that you, as staff, can use, you know, your best judgment in evaluating what's going to be controversial, where do I really need the review, and you can use those resources that are available to you in the best manner and most effective. So, and I'm sure it'll all come up at the retreat, but we're not going to have a retreat for at least 14 weeks and probably closer to, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. So anyways, I think that's worthwhile.
Staff would be amenable to have our commission council review applications or resolutions. But I would say our next meeting will probably have those, and for the first meeting to probably read a full staff report. And then after that, it could be more selective.
We're supposed to have the municipal service review on the April hearing?
Correct.
I mean, those can be pretty lengthy. Do you suggest that legal counsel should be reviewing that, or do you think that that's something, because it's in a preliminary stage, that maybe it's best saved for the second go-around?
That would be, up to the commission. I would think it would be,
There's not an opportunity, I don't think, before the next
Again,
meeting. Yeah.
correct, but I think it would, for them to get a feel of what we're working on, and they would know that, these areas they would have sphere of influence updates to review those. And just, again, it's our first meeting, so they can get an introduction to what we do. I think it would be important.
And we can go into this in more detail at a different time, right? Because this particular item is really just approval of this contract.
Well, with the understanding of our discussions with the new council, what we're thinking about, where we're thinking about going, and also getting feedback from them, which I'm sure they've had their work with many organizations such as ours, and that experience can inform what our discussion is. So to move on this, I'm getting a feeling that this is appropriate to retain Best, Best, and Kruger. It's important, though, to bring them into our strategic planning retreat, so we can have a full discussion of what does legal counsel for Marin LAFCO do? Where should they put their efforts, and where should we put our efforts as well as our financial resources in them? And I would entertain a motion to proceed in this manner.
I move to approve the ratification selection of general counsel being Best, Best, and Krieger for legal services for LAFCO.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Motion second. All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstained? The motion passes. The executive officer report, please. Sure, Commissioner Dillon.
We've gone through a couple RFPs tonight, essentially, or selection of people. What's the normal procedure for following up with the ones that we didn't select? And I'm in particular, and maybe Supervisor Conley can help me here because he was on the selection committee. I think that we need to at least report back to county council about our selection and maybe give them some tips. Because the reason I say that is that they're ultimately going to be there for us should we need them in an emergency. And so I think we need to, maybe explain to them why we picked the other party in particular. And then in general, do we respond to these applicants?
We should have mentioned that we did talk about specifically whether it should be the county or outside. Like that was specifically, and I'm sorry, I think we were remiss in not bringing that up here. Yeah.
Just to make it clear, I actually did not participate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just to avoid any appearance of conflict.
What we have done in the past is get hold of every one of our proposals and not only send them something in writing, but give them a personal phone call or meet with them to walk through it. I would propose we do that for all of the ones that have taken the time and the interest to give us a proposal. I think we've had good dialogue with all of them in our interviews, and we want to carry that out, and we want them to feel good about what they've done because, as I said earlier on, this was a no-lose situation for us. These were really great organizations. There were just a few things that were LAFCO-oriented that really set them aside.
Just one point of order then. On the staff report, you probably want to remove Mr. Conley's name and insert the member.
And we didn't all totally agree on that, but I think that was where we kind of landed, was we ended up talking about the two private firms, but I do think we were remiss in not bringing that up in our discussion, so thanks for allowing that opportunity. Sorry, this wasn't on that time.
Okay. Dennis? I thought we already voted. But Dennis, good point.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Rachel, did I understand there was not an executive officer report?
Yes, excuse me. Thank you,
Okay.
Chair.
Any commissioner announcement or request? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting to our next meeting, which is in April. So moved. Motion and a second, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.